they're coming back to me for a second PPP loan. We don't want to do it.
So what do you tell those borrowers whose bank has said that they won't give them the
I
second
think
round?
that's going to be one of the changes that I suspect we see.
Okay. So what issues have you been getting from the banks and the loan providers as far as their rollout of this round of the PPP loans?
Yeah, that's a good question. The biggest thing that we've gotten in the last couple of weeks is when lenders were submitting applications to the SBA, they were getting error codes back in response to their request for a guarantee. And again, to be perfectly honest, they didn't share this with the district office. We had no idea what the error codes meant. And when we tried to get down into the weeds to try and help the lenders and figure out exactly what was going on, we would go down the rabbit hole and find out, well, that error code made no sense because it was rejected for a different reason. So that was a big problem over the last couple of weeks. There's also in the past, the way it was set up was a lender would submit an application. Within 15 minutes, we issued a loan number. And again, to be perfectly honest, we've had a lot of fraud, not only with PPP, but also for the Economic Injury Disaster Loan Program, mostly because this was rushed out. We needed to get this out to people as quickly as we could. So, we assumed a lot of risk on some of the things that we normally don't do. Office of Management and Budget came down hard on us, and Office of General Counsel. So we've had to put some clearance processes in place to mitigate or minimize as much as we can, any potential for fraud. So that's taken a little bit more time. So the lenders had been used to, hey, I sent an application, send back the loan number. Now it's taken, 5 to 7 days, and what's wrong? And really there's nothing wrong. It's just taking a little bit more time. So it's basically the same kind of now as an SBA loan had been in the past. We really accelerated the issuance of loan numbers. Normally it takes about 5 to 7 days to get a loan number from us, but we had sped it up a little bit. Now we're kind of taking a step back. A lot of problems with applications where lenders would submit an application and they reviewed the paperwork and they saw that the in their opinion the borrower was eligible, and they were being rejected for no without any clear reason why that happened. That had a lot to do with, there was a problem with the application, a lot of bugs in it. Those were fixed yesterday. So as of the morning yesterday, I haven't gotten any calls from any lenders complaining that they're having problems with submitting applications.
Right.
And a lot of the lenders who had applications rejected and then they resubmitted it, well, at least the application is now in process. It's not being summarily dismissed. So, knock on wood, let's hope that continues. And but those are the biggest concerns that we have from our lending community. There's, and I don't want to get ahead of myself here, but since we're just kind of free flow talking, the change here also requires a borrower to go back to their original PPP lender to get the second loan. All right, so you have to do that. If you got a PPP loan before and you want to get a second one, you've got to go back to your original lender. And we've gotten some pushback from some lenders, not all of them. Most of the community banks here in St. Bernard Parish or in the greater New Orleans area have been pretty good, and they're participating again going forward. Fidelity is a bank that I know is doing it. Hope Federal Credit Union is another one. Gulf Coast Bank is doing it as well. Our community banks have just been awesome through all this. So we're very happy to have them on board. But a lot of our national banks, a lot of the big banks are kind of pulling back from it. They're not doing it as much. And so they're having borrowers come to them and say, they're coming back to me for a second PPP loan. We don't want to do it.
So what do you tell those borrowers whose bank has said that they won't give them the second round?
that's going to be one of the changes that I suspect we see. I mean, I think we're going to have to, the policy says you've got to go back to your original bank. So if your bank says, no, they're not doing it anymore, then you should be able to move to another bank. Right now, the policy isn't clear on how to do that. So I suspect we'll get some new policy guidance on that pretty soon. But that's it as well. I mean, we've gotten some questions about the demonstration of decline in revenue. We talked about that just a little while ago. How do they calculate that? The concerns about they used part of their first draw, but they didn't forgive all of it. So are they eligible right now? No, they're not, but like I said, I suspect what'll happen is that'll be another change that comes up, and change on this program is really driven by the lenders complaining to Treasury saying, this is what we want to do. We can't help this person because of X, Y, and Z. So can you change that? So we've been getting a lot of questions about that. A lot of questions about the economic injury disaster loan advance that was deducted from the first PPP loan. There's got policy guidance on that as well, where I don't want to get ahead of myself, but we're just talking, right? So let's just say in the first round of PPP, one of the things that was not an eligible expense was, and we heard this a lot from our borrowers and lenders, was, hey, they have an additional expense. Now they got to do all this COVID prevention stuff that the city or the parish that they happen to be in is requiring for them to stay open, buying screens, having masks available, hand sanitizers, all these additional expenses. And then in the first round of PPP, you couldn't expense that. It had to be something that you had spent before. Well, this round of funding does allow you to list that as an eligible expense. And when I'll get to it in a minute. I'll talk about all the changes from this iteration from the last. But that's one of the changes, is that you can now add that. As long as 60% of your PPP loan goes to payroll and payroll expenses, you can add the purchase of equipment for risk mitigation for COVID.
Right, and that mitigation equipment, the dates of purchase are anytime from when the pandemic first started, or is there a shorter amount of time that
from it started? So that's one of the problems. We're talking about the lenders. Is, well, what do we do if we had a borrower who had a PPP loan and they had all this COVID related expenses that they couldn't credit? Now it's eligible. What can we do?
Right.
Well, you can add it to the new one. So even if you may have expensed it in the past, you can include that in this second round of PPP if this is the first time that you've done it. So you can include that as an expense. And the lenders were coming, we get a lot of no matter how much you think you've got this thing figured out, that someone's going to ask a question. And one of them is that I had a PPP loan. They didn't get it all forgiven because we couldn't include these expenses. Now we can, but because they didn't spend all their money, now they're not eligible for a second loan. Can you apply that forgiveness to the first loan and then get that paid off? And I think that's going to be something that's fleshed out in amendments. But for now, no, can't do that. So, but you can, if this is your first time PPP loan, or if you used all of your money from the first time, then yeah, you can expense that. But again, 60% of that loan has to go to payroll and payroll expenses. So you can add that as well.
Okay. Well, hopefully those amendments will capture all of those people who, for whatever reason, weren't able to spend all of their loan proceeds.
Yeah, and I mentioned the forgiveness. Let me mention that real quick. If you took out a PPP loan and you had an economic injury disaster loan advance that was forgivable, that amount was deducted from your PPP loan forgiveness loan. So what a lot of borrowers have is they have this note that they're continuing to. So say I'm going to use a simple example, $100,000 PPP loan, and you had 10 employees, let's say five employees. So you would have gotten a $5,000 advance. Well, when you submitted your forgiveness application, instead of having $50,000 forgiven, you would have had 45,000 because that 5 employees was deducted. So
Right.
a lot of borrowers have a $5,000 1%, 2-year or 5-year note, depending upon when you took the loan out. And now the new law says you can give that back. So we haven't figured that out yet, the process of how that's going to happen. So I'm asking people to be patient. But I can tell you this, it's not going to come through the lenders. It's going to come directly to you. So you as a PPP borrower who also had an idle advance, you will be notified by the SBA that this money is coming back to you. Now, what shape, form, or fashion, I have no idea. And of course, we could make it really simple and say, here's a check, and that would be great. And then if you've got a note going forward, you just walk to the bank, sign it over to them, and your loan's gone. But we do have a lot of borrowers who, when they saw that they were going to have a note going forward, say, even if it's at 1%, I don't want to carry that. I'll just pay it off and close the loan. So if we went through the lenders, then the lender says, well, what am I doing? $5,000. I mean, this loan's paid off already. So we'll see. You're going to get notified by the SBA that it's coming to you, and they'll include instructions. I don't have a time frame on that. I suspect it'll happen sometime in the next 30 days. I hope sooner, but it will happen. Now, the other question that I get a lot from borrowers is, if I've got a note going forward with the bank because they deducted my forgiveness amount because of the advance, can I suspend payments on those loans until that advance comes in? Well, the answer is we will allow it. And of course, the lender has to request from the SBA a deferment, and I will approve any deferment like this. So it's not going to be a problem. But if the bank doesn't want to do that, well, then there's really not anything that we can do. So it's really up to the lender as to whether or not they want to defer it. We'll approve it, but it's their call.
Okay. Good. Do you expect that the pocket of funds for this second round of PPP will run out like the first round did?
Well, the simple truth is that the funds didn't run out on the first one. We still had like $400 billion left, but we weren't allowed to spend it. Treasury was holding on to it, and that money has been rolled over into this funding in addition to more funding coming in. I don't think it's going to be a problem, but I'm not going to say, hey, just take it easy and relax. I mean, I think getting the application in as soon as you can, take advantage of the program, is always going to be the preferred course of action. But yeah, it's possible that you could run out of money. There is a limit to how much is available. Let me take a step back. We did run out of PPP money on the first time when it was as part of the CARES Act. The Flexibility Act put more money in. We did not spend all of that. So there was still money left over from the Flexibility Act, and then it was carried forward. And this money was moved into this new pile of money, and I think we're going to have enough. I don't know if that's, but I wouldn't relax. I'd go ahead and get, if you're going to apply, go ahead and do it as soon as you can.
Right. Assuming that your bank is still taking second round applications, right?
Exactly.
Okay. Do you think that we are going to have a third round of PPP after this? I've been hearing that from some of my financial friends in finance.
That is up to Congress, and I don't know. I got to be really careful about what I comment on about pending legislation. That's not my thing. If they pass it, we'll administer it. I suspect that if demand is high, and it's a popular program, that Congress would reauthorize it, but that's really up to them.
Are you able to see right now if the program is just as popular as the first round?
We don't have any visibility. That's a good question. We in the local offices, we don't have any visibility exactly on what's being done. We have to wait on press releases and announcements that come out of Washington. Normally, we have access to what we call it the EIS, Electronic Information System, as part of Office of Capital Access, and in real time we can see which loans are being approved through our lending partners. We haven't had access to that since April of last year, and so I can't tell you what lenders are doing what. We have to rely on them to release that information to us. So I don't have any idea how much it's being used. I do know it's being used. I will say, based on an unscientific, subjective opinion, that it's not being used as much as the first time. But until I see the numbers, I don't. And there's some more limitations on this,
right?
In terms of as a revenue test. There's it used to be that you could have up to 500 employees. Well, that's been reduced to 300 now. So we're seeing fewer businesses that are going to be eligible for the second round funding. So, and the amount of money that's in there right now is commensurate with what we did last time. So I don't think there's a risk for running out of money, but that doesn't mean we should sit back and take it easy.
Well, awesome. Well, Mike, you've been really extremely helpful. Thank you so much for taking the time to sit with us today. And if anyone has any suggestions on what should be changed in the future amendments, I'm just going to go ahead and give them your personal phone number. Is that okay?
Give my address too, so they can come to my house. No, actually, my email address is the best way to reach me. It's michael.ricks@sba.gov. That's michael.ricks@sba.gov. Go to our website, sba.com. Look for local resources, and you'll find Louisiana. You can call us up. My entire staff directory is posted online. So if you want to reach me, that's my contact information. If you want to reach Joe, who's like I don't think anybody knows our certified programs on contracting better than Joe. All our BOS is Val Brumfield, was our lead lender relations specialist. She works directly with the banks, and a lot of times they will call her and ask her questions like, when we just had this, do we need to demonstrate that the loss in revenue is COVID related? And what do I need to do? And then Val just kind of clarifies that. No, I don't know where you got this, or yes, you do. But yeah, that's how to reach us. That's the best way.
Yes, everybody at the New Orleans District SBA office is super helpful, and they're more than willing to drop everything that they're doing to answer the phone and help us out as business owners. So we appreciate that. Thank you so
great.
much.
Oh, no, it's no problem.
Thank you for joining this first episode of the second season of the Pulse of the Parish podcast. The audio recording is available on all major podcasting platforms. Links are available below. For more of our video recordings, the most recent upload is available here, or a video YouTube thinks you'll like is available here. We'll see you next time.